Hey everyone, welcome back today to Berlin Noir. And for this episode, we are going to be building what I'm calling the old central station. Maybe not the best term, but it is the modern location of Berlin Central Station, the Hauptbahnhof, and the old historic location, as I'm building here in 1929, of the Lehrterbahnhof. So that is what we are going to be doing in this episode today. But first, before we get into the build, we finally hit 1,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. So thank you all so much. It's a great feeling knowing that there's a decent number of you who, loyally watch my videos and comment every week just about, and are really enjoying this series. And the fact that the vast majority of my audience is outside of the US. Based on YouTube analytics, it seems about 20% at least is from Germany, with 8-10% from the US, and then you got UK, France, and then also everywhere from Asia to South America. It's crazy, frankly, to even think that many people from that many different places are watching this video. But anyways, just thank you all so much. And several of you have asked about me starting a Patreon account and putting on a save game and such for that. And since I have hit 1,000 subscribers, that is that was my goal before I was going to release a Patreon account. So if you are interested in supporting the channel and, get access to the save game, get your name in the credits, I also have access to a Discord, which is open for everyone. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But, if you want to contribute on Patreon, you'll have some roles and private chats on the Discord as well. But all the links to Patreon and Discord will be in the description. And yeah, so if you want to support me, that would be awesome, because it takes a lot of work to do these videos, and as much fun as it is, it can be certainly tiresome sometimes. But anyways, I guess let's get back to the build before too much happens on screen, especially because what I'm doing right now, as you can see, this is the inside of the stadium, I don't know why I said that, the train station, the inside of the station. And looking at it, you can see that it's not very functional, I guess, on the inside. If this were a real station, that wouldn't really work. But the reason why I did that and I left it like that, I didn't, go back later and fix it, is because there's really no way you can see that area in the station compared to when I've built the Potsdamer Bahnhof and the Anhalter Bahnhof before. Those stations were a little more open, so you could actually see inside depending on the view, on the cinematics and such. So I detailed them and made sure they look good. Whereas with this one, there's obviously the train station here that I'm building, but there's also this main S-Bahn line, or S-Bahn U-Bahn line, I guess they both go on it. But the main line that runs through the city goes right in front of it, which covers really the entrance, at least looking in it. You can't really see into the station very much. So because of that, I just decided to leave it undetailed inside and not really worry about the fact that the platforms were kind of blocked on the one side, and they are pretty small, narrow platforms to begin with as well. But that's just because when I was lining up the platforms with the S-Bahn station above it, I wanted the walkways that come down from the elevated station to go onto the platform, and obviously I couldn't have stuff sitting on the tracks or anything. So yeah, I used the New York subway styled station, which I have been using quite a lot, which I know obviously it's American New York styled, not European, but for something like this where I need it to be pretty small, it works very well. Like I used it in the previous episode when I built the U-Bahn line along the canal, I needed that type of station also because I converted that one to procedural objects. But yeah, this one works well here because it's small, and I like the little, you can see there in the left corner there, where you have the walkways coming down from the actual elevated station. Then they go straight down onto the platform of the train station. So that looks cool. And yeah, that's really the look I was going for. And I think it looks pretty decent. But yeah, so the station itself is a little fat, to be honest. It's yeah, I should have made it a little longer, or I would have liked to have made it longer, but I was kind of limited on space. I mean, there was a river right there, the Shri running by, and I did rework the elevated S-Bahn U-Bahn line that runs along there. I had to push that back because there was even less space originally. And so I pushed it back, and then when I placed the station and looked at it from afar, and I was just like, yeah, it's still kind of squished. But I didn't want to redo it from there because, yeah, I don't know. I mean, so some reason, like when I did it the first time, my game like freaked out with the, since it's best if you like, if you're editing like a train track and the stops on there, it's best to remove the stops before you actually delete or move around the train tracks, because you can't really like go back. Sometimes when you try and go back and adjust the stops that no longer exist because there's no track running by, the game doesn't always recognize it. So there's a way that you can go into like the transportation options, which I always forget about all those options in the game, since those are more useful for, I guess, playing the game, vanilla version, vanilla style, is, if you're actually playing the game as it was intended. But yeah, you can go in there and delete any, rail line or train line or any sort of transportation line. But even then, like, the game kind of freaked out. It force closed a couple times. One time it gave me some unknown error that I've never seen before when I try to load it. So I'm not sure if that was because of that. I doubt it. It's probably just a giant coincidence, especially with this game, running into all sort of errors, more than I'd like. I've gotten it better now. I've unsubscribed to a lot of mods and cleaned up my mod list. There's a lot of mods out on the workshop now that do multiple things. So, I've had mods in the past that were essential once before, but now, I also subscribe to other mods that do the same job as that other mod, as well as, many more things. So there's often conflicts, which I don't realize, and I don't think many people realize, because, there's no errors per se that actually pop up in game, but you can lose out on FPS and just overall performance. And sometimes you'll get an error in a mod and it won't actually say, what the actual cause of it. Like, for instance, I actually got working the node controller mod, which allows you, I kind of did it a second ago, but it allows you to take the intersections and you can like basically expand them, so you can make the turns much more shallow and less sharp. So that's especially useful in European cities, or if you have, tram roads, so you don't want to have the trams taking really sharp 90-degree turns. You can make them much more shallower turns, much more realistic, so that's nice. But yeah, I had issues with that mod a lot for about a month at least, and then finally, I figured out it was just a conflict with a bunch of mods actually. So I cleaned up my mod list, and all those updated mods are going to be in the new mod list that I have also in the description. So because I am starting a Patreon account, and part of, or depending on the tier you select, you have the option to get the save game for Berlin Noir, as well as my previous mini-series that I did, Mont Saint-Michel, so you can also get that one. But since we are doing the save game for Berlin Noir, I obviously had to create an asset list through the workshop, as well as a mod list. So both of those links are going to be in the description, so you can, look at the assets and mods I'm using, even if you don't want to become a patron. But yeah, so originally I had an asset list through a Google Doc, which I was using I think it was a loading screen mod, like report, to basically see all the assets that I was using in game. So I got rid of that. If you guys prefer that, I could definitely put both down, because the Google Doc doesn't give you the option to subscribe all, assets. So if you want to subscribe all and, play the save game, then you have to go obviously through the workshop. But the thing that's nice about the Google Doc is it only gives you the assets that I'm currently using in the city. So while I'm subscribed to close to 1,000 assets, which really makes closer to 3,000 assets, considering there's prop packs with multiple props and buildings with multiple buildings. But say I'm subscribed to 1,000, I'm only currently using maybe 500, so it's a shorter list. But if you guys like the Google Doc list, I can always put that up there. For now, just to keep it simple, I wanted only one asset list up there. But so let me know what you think. But anyways, moving on from that, we're getting to the rail yard, which existed back in 1929, right next to the train station. So it's a pretty sizable rail. It's pretty long. It's a pretty long rail yard. It's not nearly as large as the one that Pingyao did for the guest build. So this one he had to do an entire rail yard in one episode, whereas I did rail yard and a train station in one. So based on that, I was able to do this pretty quickly. But it was still fun because I really do enjoy building rail yards, especially this is my first European city that I've ever built. But American rail yards I love building, and just because I really go to town on the decal use and prop use. So my FPS in this, the rest of the city, it's going to be like 15, and then I look over this way and it'll drop to like 10 FPS or something like that. But kind of kidding there, but also not really, because you will see eventually I do place a good amount of decals, and that's not even all, because I cut some of it out in the footage, so I do place even more than what you're actually seeing later. But right now I'm just kind of planning out where I want the pavement to be, where I want the dirt to be, just kind of get an overhead look just of the bigger picture. Working in layers, because obviously you have to place the buildings, the tracks first. Then I like placing, what I'm doing now, the pavement and the dirt to see where everything's going to be about. And then from there, decals, props, all that type of stuff. But so this particular rail yard here in real life, as it was back then, there was a road coming off, or actually more so a bridge, because I believe I did kind of sink this rail yard down a bit, very little. I believe in real life it was sunken down much more, because there was actually a bridge that went over the rail yard and a road that came off the bridge into the rail yard. But I guess it also brings me to another point, which I somehow forgot to mention. But the whole area that I'm building here, the train station and the rail yard, I'm placing in a slightly different location. So if you were to look at a historic map or an aerial view of this area, so basically the train station is right to the left of, it still exists today, but I'm not sure if it's like a little canal that kind of comes off of the Spree, and there's just boats parked there. So I guess there's maybe some ferry transportation there, modern day. I'm not sure how it functioned as back then, but this area is looks really nice to look at, because it's very geometric. You have roads coming up from the Reichstag and that area, going straight up to that canal that breaks off from the Spree. And then so basically what I'm saying is, it's kind of hard to tell now that I'm working on the rail yard all zoomed up, but I placed it more to the left, just because this goes all the way back to the very first episode, or I guess the second episode too, when I built the Reichstag and was planning out the basis of the city. Back then I wasn't planning on making it as realistic and as close to Berlin and as possible. So this area around here, around the Reichstag, and the Spree River that runs through, is a little different. So the station is placed maybe what would be about a half mile to the west of where it is back then. So it's not too bad. I mean, I don't think it's too bad. I mean, I still have the canal that comes off of the Spree, so that's probably the most noticeable thing, because that still exists today. So that's a definitely a location that people can recognize. Whereas this rail yard, people not everyone may be able to recognize it, so it's not as noticeable. But either way, that's how it's gonna be. It would be way too much work to go back and rework the the Spree River and the area around the Reichstag, and I'd have to redo this as well. So that is obviously not going to happen. But anyways, I guess back to what I am doing on screen. Just placing decals. I like these decals, which I never knew existed until Ping Yao used them in the guest build for his rail yard. He used them, so I had to subscribe to them, and they're really nice because they're like worn down, kind of grassy look. And if you sink them down using Move It, so they're not as bright, and add some grass, trees around it, kind of makes the edges look a little bit rough. It looks. I really like the look, and it adds some nice details. Which one thing that's really hard to do in this game is get all the different variations in colors and textures on grass and on dirt. Because obviously go down to your local park and look out at the grass, and you'll see dirt patches. You'll see maybe some slightly dead grass, maybe some very dead grass, and then you'll see your very green grass. Unless it's winter time, so I guess maybe in parts of the U.S. and Europe, wherever you are, you might not have grass at all. But I know where I am, all my grass is dead as people prepare to reseed the grass with winter grass. But yeah, so that's very hard to do in this game, is get all those different slight variations in colors. So I like, since that decal does do a pretty decent job of, adding some slight difference in colors. I use it also on grass park areas, though I haven't built a ton of parks, which I, should do more of. Even though back then, looking at maps, there didn't seem to be a ton of parks. It seemed to, though, like the parks were more so just like your backyard area, which of course wasn't really a park. It was just, the center area of a large residential block with, bathrooms, dirt, who knows what else. But yeah, so anyways, yeah, I guess you can see there that I've used a ton of decals, which I mentioned earlier. I like using that, I think it's a coal stain decal. It's like it's a small circular decal. There's also a coal stain decal that's like long. It's more long than it is like square or circular or anything like that, which is an older decal that's been around in the game for quite some time. But that black little stain decal comes in a bunch of different colors: brown, red, white, yellow, and it's in some pack for. It's definitely not coal then, because like I said, it just comes in a pack. So I think it's for like different piles of dirt and stuff, which you can get. But I like using that one in particular because when you lower it down into the ground, just like I do all my other decals, it gets much lighter, but you can still see it, and it adds a nice little wear look to it, rather than using the same wear decal that is pretty common and popular in this game. There's only a couple of those that come in the pack, which I still use those as well, don't get me wrong. It's very nice, but it's always, like I said, when it comes, regardless of if it's grass, dirt, or pavement, you need some sort of variation, and really the only option is decals, which depending on how you play your game and how good your computer is, it can really screw with your computer, slow down your FPS, which is, something you just have to deal with, unfortunately, with this game. Though, I don't go overboard like this, of course, everywhere, because if I did, my city would be, like, the FPS would be almost non-existent in this city, because it's impossible to detail that much in this game, regardless of how good your computer is, really, because the game's just not optimized and not meant to be played like that. But anyways, For the rest of the episode, just have some detailing with props, adding this little area here with the crates and all the little Canadian maple leaves logos on the crates. So I guess, I don't know, these are shipping from or to Canada, who knows? Or maybe it's just something else and you have a red maple leaf. But yeah, and when I was looking at the aerial view of this area back then, it did seem as though there was some sort of crate area there, like just very similar to what I did there. Like the trains would bring in those crates, or the crates would be placed on the trains, whatever, and they would take them away. But here I just use the vanilla planned timber assets, which for a vanilla prop is not too bad. There are wooden timber assets on the workshop, but not trying to describe to too many things. Yeah, I've used these a couple of places, and they're also placed in the other train yard as well that Pingyao did. But so just placing in now some train cars. The one, pretty much the most, the unfortunate thing about this series and building in this time period is there's really no European themed rail cars from this time period. So there's definitely plenty of European, themed train cars that exist. The modern day, they're very modern assets. But as far as ones that existed back then, nothing exists on the workshop, at least as props. There's the passenger trains that I use, which are very accurate, and I got the mod that converts any sort of vehicle or tree to props. But they're passenger trains, so obviously there's not going to be a bunch of passenger train cars parked in a rail yard. So I went ahead with these here, which they don't stand out as being super modern. They blend in pretty well, so it looks all right. But anyways, we are getting close to the end of the episode now. And once again, I just want to thank you all for, being a part of the ride to 1,000 subscribers. It's been awesome, and I can't wait for another 1,000 more. So I will see you all next time.